All right, book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 3. That's where we're going to start. This is going to be a little bit of a, I don't know how you would say it, maybe old school. Something you've heard probably time and time again, but it'll have just a little bit of a twist. But sometimes we need to be reminded of things that we've been learned or taught before. Because I think even for myself, we sometimes seem to maybe kind of fade away from a few things. Even as we begin to learn many different things about God and how to study different ways, and He begins to reveal different things to us and show us different things, I think sometimes, like again I said, even for myself, we seem to kind of fade from things. Not that we intentionally do it, it's just sometimes we seem to kind of get caught up in different things, I guess maybe you might say. But this is something you've heard time and time again. And I just wanted to share this with you. And it's real simple. You've heard this verse. You know this verse probably by heart. It's Proverbs chapter 3, starting in verse 5. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not to your own understanding. And all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths." Now, you know, this one little verse covers such an array of different things, I guess, in there you might say. But before we get into it, I want to just share a couple of things. You know, Noah, you know, in Genesis 6 and 22, it says this. And, you know, God told Noah about building the ark and doing all these different things and getting ready for this great flood, you know. So in verse 6 and 22 of Genesis, it says, "Thus Noah did according to all that God commanded him, so he did." You know, but there's one thing about Noah that we have to really understand, is he trusted God. And somewhere in there, he had to have trusted God, you know, because he had to gather up all these animals. Sure, God made them come, but, you know, he had to see to it that all the animals got in there. You know, he had to think about all the food that was going to be going on. How long was this going to take? How long was it going to be floating on the water? Not only that, but he had children. He had 3 sons and their wives. He had his wife, and you know, all of these different things. Not only that, but I mean, even use your imagination a little bit. All of these people that, you know, possibly helped Noah. You know, why are you building this thing called a boat? You know, what is rain? What is all these different things? You know, this thing can't happen, and all this type of stuff. So he had all of these things possibly going on in his life, but yet he trusted God. He trusted Him. He had to have trusted God. You know, and then look at Abraham, a couple others. Abraham, not a whole lot is said about Abraham in the Bible, really, according to his life from the time that God called him back to his childhood. So, you know, what happened all the way up to that. But then all of a sudden, can you imagine one day, Abraham was sitting there probably in his house or his tent, you know, just maybe looking at his animals or whatever he might have been doing. And all of a sudden, in Genesis 12 and 1, it says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, get out of your country." You know, I mean, look, just all of a sudden, he heard this voice, "Get out of your country, from your family and from your father's house." In other words, get out from around them to a land that I'll show you. I mean, look, it didn't even say where he's going or nothing. And then it goes on, it says, "I'll make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make a great name." It said, "You shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Now imagine, I mean, really think about it. I mean, Abram just sitting there, or Abraham, how you want to pronounce it, sitting there, and then all of a sudden he heard this voice. You know, get out of this country. Get away from your family. Get away from your friends. Leave it all. Come to where I'm going to show you. I mean, if somebody came up to you and said that, I mean, what would you think? You know, you'd go to asking questions. Where am I going? How am I going to get there? You know, how am I going to provide? I know nothing about where I'm going and all these different things. But it said that Abraham got up and went. He trusted God. He did. He trusted God. Another thing, and you know this story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You know, they were there around Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar went and built this great big idol. And then all of a sudden he told everybody, said, "I want you to bow down to it when these things happen." And these 3 guys didn't do it. And you know the story. And it's in Daniel 3:16. It says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. So in other words, he was asking him, why didn't you do it? Verse 17 says, if this is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. So see right off the bat, they trusted God. They did. Regardless of whatever was going to happen, they trusted. Even in verse 18 it says, but if not, now you've heard me say this, but if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. You see, they trusted him. They truly trusted God. Even these three guys, not just Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but also Abraham, Noah, and many others in the Bible. They trusted him. Trusted him with everything they had. So the big question is, do we truly trust God like we say we do? Do we truly trust him? If we say, well, I trust God to do this, do we truly trust him, or do we turn around and do things our own way? How about Nehemiah? Nehemiah was a man. He was in the Babylonian captivity, and then it come time he felt like he needed to go and rebuild the wall. He went to the king. He said yes, and only one went. You know the story. He went and done it. And in Nehemiah 2:20 it says this. So I answered them and said to them, go, the God of heaven himself will prosper us. Therefore we his servants will arise and build. So see, he went and he trusted God. But he even knew that he was going to have opposition. People were going to come against him. For a prime example, he knew that God would fight for him because there was a group, a Sanballat, that came against him, and plus other nations, other people were picking on him, and all these different things. Nehemiah 4:20 says, whenever you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us. So see, Nehemiah trusted God. He trusted him with everything he had. One more. And I love this. I love this little phrase, and when I read it, I want you to really listen to it. It's out of the book of Ruth, and I love what this lady said. And I want you to just imagine in your own heart, can you say these words to God? Can you honestly say these words to God? Now, granted, this lady was talking to Naomi, but just within your mind and within your heart, just see if you could say these words to God. And it says this in Ruth 1:16. That's where it starts. But Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you, or to turn back from following after you. Just pretend you're talking to God, telling him this. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. You see, she was talking to Naomi. But not only that, she said this in verse 17. Says, where you die, I will die. And there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you from me. Could you say that to God? Could we literally say these words to God? This is how much I love you, how much I trust you. With every bit of my being, every bit of my life, every step I take, any thought I make is you. Do we trust him that much? One more, and then we'll get into something else. You know, whenever Gabriel came to Mary, when Gabriel came to Mary, he told her the events that was going to take place. You know, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, you will conceive a child, and you'll give birth, and he'll be the Son of God. But there was a phrase that Mary said to Gabriel that day. And this is what she said in Luke 1:38. It says this, then Mary said, behold, the maidservant of the Lord. You see, the maidservant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. You see that? Let it be to me according to whatever you said. Whatever you said, bring it on. Because I trust God. I trust him. If this is what he wants of me, then I trust him to take my life, take my body, take whatever, and do with it as you please. God now. And this is These are just a few. I mean, there's many, many others. I mean, I'm sure you probably have some of your own favorites that you could probably even mention about trusting God as much as they did. I mean, tons of the ones in the New Testament. You know, you heard me talk about Peter and Paul and all those. But remember in Proverbs 3 it says, trust the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Trust him with all your heart. The word trust in Hebrew means confident. It means confident. Do we have confidence in God to do what he says he's going to do? It also means to fall down. It also means to feel secure. Have confidence. Put my trust in. And even rely and also secure. You know, do we truly feel secure enough in God that we can truly know that he's going to do what he says he's going to do? Regardless of his answer that we may ask of him, can we still trust him? Webster says this, that trust is the belief that someone or something is reliable, good, honest, or effective. You see, reliable, good, and honest. You know, every one of us, in one time or another, has had to trust someone with something or about something. Whether you go and you confide in someone and you ask them, please don't repeat this, then you have to trust them. Many times it has happened that we go and we have shared with other people, say, please don't repeat this, and next thing you know, the whole countryside knows. What does that do? That destroys your trust. What about if someone comes along and does something or asks to borrow something or whatever the case may be, you do this for them, time goes on, repayment or whatever never comes along, then it comes back again. Would you help me again? Then you begin to doubt. Possibly help them, whatever, then all of a sudden, no repayment or whatever the case may be or agreement, it has been broken, then they come back and what happens again? You don't trust them. None. I mean, it happens to everybody. To a degree, there are some people in this world you just flat can't trust. You can't. A gentleman one time came up to me and asked, we was talking about something. I mean, I had just met him, and he said something. He said, don't you trust me? And I said, no. That was my answer, just period. No, I don't trust you. He said, why? I said, because I don't know you. That was my answer. That was my answer, because we have to get to know someone. So if we say that we know God, then why don't we trust him like we say we do? Some people may say, well, trust is faith. Well, to a degree, yes, but to a degree, no. Faith and trust are different, but yet the same. In 1 Corinthians 12 and 9, it says, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by the same Spirit. Y'all have heard me read that verse before, so it's a gift. It is a gift to a degree, but also the faith can be built. You can build that faith if you want it to grow. I've shared with you how to do that. Prayer, reading, studying, all these different things, putting into actions the thing that you believe. You build your faith. But you know what? One writer wrote this. It says, trusting is what we do because of faith. Trusting is what we do because of the faith we have been given. Trusting is believing in the promises of God in all circumstances. In all circumstances. Even in those where the evidence seems to be to the contrary. In other words, if evidence is not showing that it can happen, but yet we still trust God, regardless of whatever comes about, we still trust him. We still have that trust in him. So you see, there is some difference, but yet the same. There's another Hebrew word, if I can pronounce this right, is biktachon. I think it's pronounced right. It means trust in God. That's what it means. It also means confidence. It also means hope. But it also means this: to lean on and to rest on. To lean or to rest on something or someone. You know, if you truly trust somebody, you can truly lean on them and you can rest on them. Because if you confide in them or whatever the case may be, you can have that trust that things will happen that they say will happen. That you know that nothing's going to go wrong, nothing's going to go disarray or anything because you have that trust. You can rest in them. But when trust has been broken, then the rest begins fading away. You can't hardly trust them anymore because it's been broken. But there's one thing about God, friends. He'll never break his promises. He'll never do it. He will never, ever break his promises. Not one time in the Scripture can you even find God saying, maybe, I don't know, could it be anything? He said no. He will do what he says he will do. He will keep his promises. He will keep those things that he says he'll do. Proverbs 29 and 25, it says, the fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe. See, man can bring a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord can be safe. Because I've even shared with you, and evidence of this was last Sunday. Sure, I'm the pastor of the church, but I make mistakes too. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. So sometimes it's not that my trust has been broken. It's just the fact that everybody makes mistakes. I'm a man. But God is not. Psalms 31 and 14 says, but as for me, I trust in you, O Lord. I say, you are my God. So if we say that God is our God, then why don't we trust him? Why don't we really trust him? Why don't we trust him to the point that it's just so unreal that people get amazed at the trust that we have in God? That verse says, trust him with all your heart. Jeremiah 17 and 9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And so we wonder, if it says trust with all our heart, and yet Jeremiah says our heart is wicked, then how can we do this? How can it be done? Something has to change. Something has to change in us. And that change is this. Jeremiah 24 and 7, it says, then I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return to me with their whole heart. You see, God can change the heart. So if we want to trust God, then maybe there's something wrong with our hearts. Remember, just about everything goes back to our heart. Not the heart that goes thump, thump, but the heart that we have. The spiritual side, the spiritual part of our hearts that is supposed to trust God and love God. You know, I know that this is a little bit kind of hard to explain, and it really is. But you know, we as Christians and people all over the world today are sitting in churches and talking about the Lord, or possibly having Sunday school, or maybe a worship service, or whatever the case may be. And they talk about how much faith they have in God, and the things that God has done for them, and all the things that they've possibly seen God do through their life, or through someone else's life, or through an event, or anything like that. But when it comes to trusting him, they won't trust him. And you say, what do you mean? Do we trust God enough with our kids? Have you ever handed your children over to God? I can say for Lisa and myself, it has been a battle, giving up our children to God. You know, because God entrusts us with them. We're supposed to raise them. We're supposed to take care of them. And when they're grown, they're actually supposed to come back and help us. But that didn't happen. But anyway, but do you trust them? Did you give them to God? Did you truly say, here they are. I've done all I can do to the best of my ability. Now it's your turn. You've got to do it. You've got to take care of them. How many people do you know that can truly up and say that they trust God with their money? That's a touchy subject. It really is for some people. But do they? Do people trust God truly with their funds? Prime example, just like, the Bible tells us to do things with our money, to help people, to tithe, and all these different things, but yet some people just won't do it. Don't do it. Ain't going to do it. Is that trusting God? Sure. There's things that are hard to do to give up to God. There are things that are hard to give up to Him. But we come to the point that we serve a mighty and loving God, the one that we speak of, the one that we share to the world with, the one that we pray to, the one that we read, the one that we study, and all these things, we should be able to go and trust Him. Trust Him with anything, our life, our money, our children, our family, even our friends, our church, everything. Trust Him with it, that He'll take care of it, that He'll provide, He'll do all of these things. And it all has to come from the heart. The trueness of who we truly are. Because does not the Bible say that you'll know a tree by its fruits? But do sometimes we try to keep some of those fruits back for ourselves because we want to control what's going on. We want to control what's happening in our lives. And then the verse turns around. It says, trust Him with all your heart. And it says, lean not to your own understanding. 1 Corinthians 1:25 says this, because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the wickedness of God, the weakness of God is stronger than men. Lean not to your own understanding. So if the foolishness of God is wiser than men, that's really kind of amazing. Lean not to your own understanding. So does that mean that we're not supposed to take care of things and do the things that we're supposed to do? No, we do have obligations of things. If God gives us a child, then we're supposed to take care of it. Period. Prime example, there was a gentleman, I'll never forget this as long as I live. There was a young man at this point in time, he was a very young man, had 2 little bitty children. Lisa was teaching the Sunday school, and I was in there. And I think we were talking about prayer at the time. Anyway, something came up, and this gentleman made gentleman. He made one of the most profound statements I have ever heard in my life, and I have never forgot it. There was something happening, and he made a statement. He said, we're supposed to pray about everything. And the Bible does say that we're supposed to pray without ceasing. Bring everything to God. But he said, God lets us know that we're supposed to do things. And he's true, that's right. We have things we're supposed to do. He said if someone come up and said that they needed their yard cut, that he was handicapped and couldn't do it, why should we go pray? Why don't we go and cut the man's grass? Think about it. If someone is in need, if someone is standing there and you're watching him drown in a pool, are you going to stop and pray about it, or are you going to jump in and save them? If things need to be done right now, they need to be done. But there's a great difference when it comes to something great, like a big financial decision or a big medical decision or something like that. That's greatly understood. But when it's something that can be done right now, God lets us know that we're supposed to help people and do what needs to be done. But when it comes to spiritual matters and things of the heart and things of God, we're not supposed to lean on to our own understanding. Another example, something of the fleshly sort. If something comes along in our life or someone comes in our life trying to tempt us, Satan is using this person. Sometimes we don't even see it. But Satan uses someone to try to tempt us into doing something we know that is wrong. Then what is happening? If you step out and do something that is wrong, then you're leaning to your own understanding and not God's. Because God ain't going to stand there and say, I understand. My word says for you to do this. That's what it means. Lean not to your own understanding. Stay with the understanding of God. Trust Him. Know His word. Know what His Bible says. Know what it says in the heart to do. And not be using excuses because it says don't do it. Because even the foolishness of God is wiser than men. Proverbs 16:25 says, there is a way that seems right to man. There's a way that seems right to man, and it's true. It says, but its end is the way to death. There's a way that seems right to man. Because many people, and just like myself and everyone in this world, we see things and we want to do things. But many times it is not right. How many of us have been deceived? Deceived. Someone comes along with these fancy, smooth, silk words, and it makes it sound so beautiful. Next thing you know, you're in a trap. You've done something wrong. Because what has happened, Satan has come along. He has deceived and made it seem right, but it's just not right. And that's where it comes into the fact that we have to pray. We have to stay in prayer. We have to learn to pray and seek Him, look at Him. And I'll see what it says. There's a way that seems right to man. It don't say it takes you to death. It says, and its end is the way to death. In other words, you're walking down the wrong path. That road will kill you. It will. That's what it means. Psalms 9:10, it says, and those who know your name will put their trust in you. Talking about God. For you, Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. And those who know your name will put their trust in you. I gave you that example earlier about a gentleman who asked me something about, do you trust me? And I told him no, because I don't know you. How many of us are just go out and find somebody just totally, we don't have a clue who they are, but yet we just going to fall every bit of our trust into them? You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Because you don't know them. So that it raises another question. Do we truly know God like we say we do? To the point that we can say, you have everything. I trust you with everything that I have, me, heart, whole 9 yards of mine and everything. Jeremiah 33:3 says, call to me and I will answer you. Call to me and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. Lean not to your own understanding. Trusting God to even teach you, show you things. All of the things that we just mentioned. The next one, in all your ways acknowledge Him. See what it says? In all your ways acknowledge Him. Let me teach you a new word here. The Hebrew word for acknowledge is yada, Y-A-D-A. All these new words I'm teaching you should be going out having fun with. I mean, just, making people just think you're real smart. That's what I do. Hebrew for acknowledge means yada. It means to know. It means to perceive, to distinguish, to recognize, to confess, to be acquainted with, and to be wise about. You see all these great words. Distinguish, to be able to perceive and distinguish and even recognize. Can we recognize God? Do we trust Him enough? And we don't lean on our own understanding to where that we look out into the world that we can see Him. That we can truly see Him in everything. Whether it be good, whether it be bad, whether it be through someone or through a song or anything, can you see Him? Can you distinguish who He is? Can you recognize who He is? Do you recognize His voice like we talked about a while back? Acknowledge Him. In all your ways, in everything that you do, we're supposed to acknowledge God. Big question. What was the first thought that come to your mind when you stepped foot on the floor out of the bed this morning? You ever thought about it? What was the first thought? Was it work, play, whatever? Or was it the Father? Did you step out of the bed and say, thank you for one more chance? One more chance. Thank you. What was the first not? If in all your ways acknowledge Him. Numbers 23 and 19 says, God is not a man. God is not a man that He should lie. Acknowledging Him. He's not a man. It says, nor a son of man that He should repent. Has He said, and will He not do? Or has He spoken, and will He not make it good? Trust Him. Acknowledge Him. Know who He is. Recognize who He is. Even confess to Him. That's what we're supposed to do. And this is one verse. James 1:17, it says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. Every good and perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights. You ever thought about him as a Father of lights? Being able to recognize him, distinguish who he is, be acquainted with. It says a Father of lights, of whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. He can't change. He's the same. He don't waver, he don't move, he don't sway, he don't do anything. It's one way. One way. Knowing this, knowing who he is and knowing what he does. One more. It says in Romans 8:28, and we know, and y'all have heard this verse time and time again, and we know that all things work together for the good. All things work together for the good. Everybody says that. Everybody knows it. And it does. All things, just like in a Christian's walk, when they're walking with the Lord and they're doing everything they possibly can to serve him, to stay on that path, to keep seeking, keep looking, praying, thinking about him, like I said, recognizing, acknowledging who he is. When they're walking, friends, God will use everything for the good. He will. Whatever comes along, He'll take care of it. We may not like it. We may not like what he says, but it's for our good. We may not know it at the particular time that is happening, and everyone in here knows this. What happens today we may not understand, but give it a week or so and you say, oh, okay, I see why God did this, so that I'll know this. You see? You see what I mean? But see, but let me finish the verse. This is what people leave out. Okay? And we know that all things work together for the good to those who love God. Now you see it? It's not to everybody. To those who love God and to those who are called according to his purpose. All those things happen to the ones who love him. See, they leave that part out. The ones who love him, friends, can acknowledge those things. The ones who love him begin to recognize and see, be able to perceive and see that it's God working. Know that it's working for them. Even though it may hurt, it may do different things to us in our lives and change the way maybe we think about things, but yet deep in our heart we know that God is doing it for us, for our good. That is acknowledging him. That is knowing who he is and why he's doing it and for the reason he's doing it. For the ones who love him. For the ones who love him. Isaiah 26:3 says, you will keep him in perfect peace. Talking about us. God will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. See, our mind is stayed. In other words, our mind is focused totally on him. Totally on him. We'll keep him in perfect peace. You know, you've seen people in this world that just don't have any peace in their life. It's a constant turmoil. Maybe it's because their mind is not stayed on him. They want him to do things, but they don't want to think about him. They want him to do things, but yet they won't acknowledge him. They won't do all the things that he says we're supposed to do. We're supposed to keep our minds on him. We're supposed to acknowledge who he is. But the last one, it says, and he shall direct your path. And he shall direct your path. This word shall. Listen to this. This word shall. I thought this was really sharp. I've never looked this up until the other day. The word shall means, S-H-A-L, this is what it means. Something is expected to happen in the future. That's what the word shall, S-H-A-L-L. I didn't even know that till the other day. Something is expected to happen in the future. He shall direct your path. So in other words, he will. He's going to do it. It's a promise. Numbers 23:19. Remember, I just read this. It says, God is not a man that he should lie. God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should repent. He has he said, and will he not do, or has he spoken, and will he not make it good? See, he will. He will, because he's not a man and he will not lie. You can trust him. It's hard. Yes, it is hard. It's not an easy path. It's not. But the more, remember, and I say it again, I've said it before, if we're a Christian and we're wanting to walk with him and you hear things and you begin learning new and different things, you need to practice it. Practice it. You say, how do I practice trusting him? Trust him. Sometimes give him something you don't want to give him. Sometimes turn over something to him that you don't want to turn over. Trust him. Trust him. Give it to him. Let him have it. Do you know there's three things? There's three things in this verse. Three things in this verse that we have to do. I don't know if you noticed it or not, but there's three things in this verse that we have to do, and God only does one. One is trust the Lord with all your heart. There's one that we have to do. Number two is lean not to your own understanding. There's number two. And in all your ways acknowledge him. The three things that we're supposed to do, and he'll do one thing. He will direct your path. Can you see it? Three things, just three little things. Just trust him. Don't think about our own ways of doing things. In all your ways acknowledge him. He just wants you to praise him. You see, that's really all that is. Praising him. Give him thanks for it. Let the world know. If someone says, well, why don't you do this? Well, God said we need to do this first. You see, you just acknowledged him and you turned around and trusted him, all in the same voice. All the same thing. Three things. Trust him. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And see, it's just trust. I know this is simple. I know this was a simple message. Probably you've heard it 1,000 times. But with everything that we've learned in the past few months, does it not make it a little bit easier to trust him? To know that he's such a great and mighty God, that he'll do what he says he will do. He'll show up and do it, but we got to do our part. You know, it's not like a lot of these other preachers out in the world talking about how great you're going to get rich, how happy you're going to be all your life, and all these different things. God has some conditions, friends. He's got some conditions. I just read one little verse, or two verses, where there's three things that we have to do, and he'll do one. And I just read another one where it says that he is not a man and he will not lie. And he'll do it.